Hello, good evening, and welcome to Parliamentary News on NTA Parliament, reaching you from Nigeria's capital city, the FCT. I am Vivian Idekbefo. First, the headlines. President Buhari inaugurates National Counter-Terrorism Center to protect Nigeria's cyberspace.
This commissioning is coming as we are gradually winding down this administration.
National Assembly resumes plenary after 2023 governorship and state assemblies elections. Plus, Senate meets stakeholders on National Social Investment Bill.
Gather critical information and valuable data.
And now to the details. A new presidential order aimed at protecting the nation's cyberspace from all forms of intrusion will soon be endorsed by President Muhammadu Buhari. This is to effectively synchronize efforts of Nigeria's security and law enforcement agencies towards addressing the numerous security challenges bedeviling the country. President Muhammadu Buhari stated this while inaugurating new offices of the National Security Advisor and National Counter-Terrorism Center. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo has this report.
Described as pride of the nation and a worthy legacy of the Buhari administration, the new state-of-the-art national security infrastructure was designed and constructed in 3 years by the Office of the National Security Advisor. The high-tech facilities are aimed at enhancing the nation's strategic response to a broad range of current and emerging security concerns, especially terrorism and violent extremism. The National Security Advisor, Babagana Munguno, guided President Buhari on tour of the world-class security infrastructure, including forensic laboratories and National Crisis Center. The facilities, he said, will further enhance Nigeria's already recognized contribution to global counterterrorism policy and practice efforts, as well as give impetus to the country's internal, bilateral and multilateral cooperation and collaboration in tackling the menace of terrorism and violent extremism.
The conceptualization, design and development of the new offices of the National Security Advisor and the National Counter-Terrorism Center were based on Mr. President's vision of ensuring a robust national security enterprise for our country. It is my great pleasure to thank you, Mr. President, for the enormous support and confidence you have reposed in me to fulfill these projects as part of the numerous legacies of your administration.
The United Nations' new agenda for peace focuses on holistic and comprehensive approaches to building societies in which terror has no home. It is our understanding that the National Counterterrorism Center aligns with this overall peace-building agenda, and that its functionality and success will contribute to further strengthening and supporting the peace architecture in this country.
President Muhammadu Buhari, who commended the National Security Advisor for what he called the noble achievement, expressed confidence that the facilities provided will optimize efforts at addressing the newly evolving security challenges towards achieving the desired peaceful and secure environment for the country.
This commissioning is coming as we are gradually winding down this administration. It will therefore serve as a major legacy to provide the incoming administration with the state-of-the-art infrastructure to effectively coordinate our national security and counter-terrorism efforts. Most importantly, this will demonstrate our firm commitment to ensure our national security capabilities are kept abreast with the highest global standards.
The president, who used the opportunity to highlight the gains recorded by his administration in improving national security, was emphatic that the promise made on coming to power in 2015 has been largely delivered.
I can confidently state here today that we have achieved significant milestones in degrading the major threats and restoring normalcy to most of the hitherto securitized areas in the northeast. The government has also curbed a series of armed banditry and kidnapping cases in the northwest and north central zones, which emerged as a result of the scattering of Boko Haram in the northeast and the implosion of Libya in the Maghreb.
He also described as pleasing that key threats within Nigeria's maritime domain, such as piracy and sea robbery, are being tackled, with over 87 oil tankers involved in various crude oil theft arrested. President Buhari is, however, worried over the dynamic nature of cyber threats with the increasing digitalization of the economy, and promised to endorse a new presidential order towards effectively protecting Nigeria's cyberspace from all forms of intrusion. In Abuja, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
And now to parliamentary matters. The Senate has applauded President Muhammadu Buhari for assenting to the 16 constitution alteration bills, describing it as one of the major achievements of the 9th National Assembly. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Nkwo has this report.
Senators are back to the chamber after the rescheduled governorship and state houses of assembly elections. President of the Senate Ahmed Lawal welcomed his colleagues and commended President Muhammadu Buhari for assenting to 16 constitutional alteration bills.
With the financial independence of state houses of assembly and state judiciary are very, very critical for the development of democracy in Nigeria. In fact, for good governance as well.
He explained that the National Assembly will constitute a committee that will liaise with the executive to find out why 19 other constitution amendment bills did not receive presidential assent.
Maybe there are a few explanations that could be made, and then they will be okay. And we will do that almost immediately because time is of essence. We shouldn't think that the time is too tight. I think even if it is one day that we have left, we should do our best. Where the issues are too much to handle, I think the next assembly, the 10th National Assembly, should be able to attend to such issues.
Senate received presidential requests for the confirmation of 7 nominees for appointment as members of the governing board of the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation, with Abdul Karim Mobalaji as chairman. The National Human Rights Commission Act Repeal and Reenactment Bill, Nigerian Building and Road Research Institute Bill, the Federal Medical Center Uli Anambra State Establishment Bill, and the Orthopedic Hospital Ihitu Boma Establishment Bill were passed. The Chief Whip of the Senate, Oji Uzo Kalu, has described the Electoral Act 2022 as a work in progress. He was speaking when he briefed Senate correspondents on the just concluded general elections across the country.
What I would like to see with my colleagues is for us to go for electronic voting, so that where people like in India, it might not be automatic by electricity, it might be manual. You just punch the button, so nobody is doing anything with paperwork.
The Senate Chief Whip also urged the ruling All Progressives Congress to zone the position of the President of the Senate to the southeast. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
Still from the National Assembly, the House of Representatives says the amendments to the Electoral Act by the 9th National Assembly have been instrumental in Nigeria's electoral process through the use of technology for accreditation and transmission of results. Resuming plenary after the governorship and state assembly elections, House members were emphatic that an objective assessment of the 2023 elections shows remarkable improvements from the past. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports.
After each election cycle, gaps are identified and changes are initiated for improvements. It is with this line of thought that House members reconvened plenary, having put the amended Electoral Act to the major test. House Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila says a fair assessment may not suggest perfection of the process, but fair play is among acknowledgements that cannot be taken away from the entire process.
We need time and the deliberate efforts of political, religious, and social and economic leaders acting in recognition of the fact that while elections will come and go, our highest imperative remains the progress of Nigeria and the prosperity of her people.
The Speaker also expressed commitments of the legislature to pass the Electoral Offences Commission Establishment Bill for enforcement against violators as they undermine electoral and constitutional provisions. Political empowerment for women and other marginalized groups is another area of focus in the few months left for the 9th National Assembly.
If it's not too late, those issues regarding the empowerment of women, we still have time, hopefully, to bring one or two of them back on the floor of the House. National building is also a joint effort. Every significant advancement is the product of collaborative efforts by numerous people acting in different capacities.
Other features as plenary include first reading of 6 bills, while 2 other bills passed second reading. These include the bill to amend National Identity Management Commission.
Okay, Section 27 of the Principal Act is what we are amending. It's actually in operation by the executive, but we're only giving it the legal backing.
The House adopted 2 resolutions, the first from Uyime Idem, calling for adoption of measures to curb train mishaps across the country.
In spite of these unfortunate trends, which are as a result of the carelessness of some individuals, no one has ever been held to account for the unfortunate loss of lives.
House member Muhammad Al-Ghali urges the rehabilitation of highways in Jos Plateau State. Meanwhile, the House Committee on Public Accounts has submitted a report on the bill seeking the establishment of an independent office of the Auditor General for the Federal Capital Territory Area Councils. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
And from Kebbi State comes the report that representation of the people at the national or state assemblies has numerous responsibilities which in most cases are not known to the citizens. In this report, correspondent Abdul Mohammed Bawa takes a look at some of these legislative functions both at the national and state levels.
The senators, House of Representative members, the state assembly members are what form the legislative arm of government in the federal and state governments. They are saddled with the responsibilities of passing laws, deliberation, and approving motions sent by the executive or moved by a member of the House. Example, budget proposal by the executive, and oversight functions to ensure what was approved in the budget is being utilized appropriately, among other duties. Umar Bagudu Sarkin Shanu is a former member of Kebbi State House of Assembly, and he shed more light.
In Madalisa, the most important is oversight functions. He should make sure what is being budgeted is being executed. He should make sure it's up to the standard, and make sure he should have to verify whether it is up to or not.
Being aware of these functions is important, but performing them by the member is more important.
For House of Assembly members, is that all what they are doing inside the House should make sure that they put it into effect.
Honestly, all we need from them is to be up and doing. They should make sure they perform their duties, not to be bench warmers.
The response of people in Kebbi State shows that the legislative arm of government is critical to the development of the nation, whose functions, if not performed diligently, could jeopardize the yearnings and aspirations of the masses. In Birnin Kebbi, Abdul Mohammed Bawa, NTA News.
Time now to take a break. When we return, impact of the Not Too Young to Run Act on 2023 general elections. Don't go away.
NTA Parliament is a dedicated 24-hour channel that broadcasts the activities of the Nigerian Senate, Federal House of Representatives, and all the 36 state houses of assembly. NTA Parliament, strengthening Nigeria's democracy.
Welcome back. You're watching Parliamentary News on the NTA. A National Social Investment Program Establishment Bill is on the way to provide the needed institutional framework to guide the federal government in selecting target beneficiaries in the country. This was made known at a one-day public hearing organized by Senate Committee on Special Duties. National Assembly correspondent Rina Obasi has details.
Issues raised at the hearing border on its establishment as a commission rather than an agency to ensure continuity, specified beneficiaries, domestication of the commission in all states, and specification of the ministry that will manage the commission, among others.
Many institutions were actually closed down, others popped out, but still the tackling the poor and vulnerable has always remained in a vacuum. So, sir, putting up an act to consolidate this effort and give us a solid direction is actually the way to go.
So, sirs, I would like to see where it is listed such other programs as directed or as included by the National Social Protection Policy. Because under the National Social Protection Policy, there are many policy measures that, if implemented, would be also aligned with the statutory mandate of the agency.
In particular, sir, we felt that the board, as it were right now...
You said you have presented a paper?
We are going to send a paper, sir. Yes, sir. The board, as it's configured right now, is over 36 members. And such a board is going to be a threat to the fund of the agency if created.
Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management, through the Permanent Secretary, Dr. Sani Gwazo, says the bill, if passed, will help to consolidate on the activities of the ministry and reduce to the barest minimum the social unrest in the country.
What will happen if this goodwill is not consolidated? If we leave the scene today as it is, believe me, most of the good work will dissipate.
Senate aligns with the bill, describing it as exceptional towards institutional support to citizens as well as the vulnerable groups in the society.
The National Social Investment Bill is in the category of proposals geared towards growing our institutional ability to support citizens and groups towards societal stability and progress.
It is as part of the methodology for the exercise that this public hearing was called to enable the committee gather critical information and valuable data.
The committee says it is still open to more presentations to cover all interests in the bill.
Now, general elections are effective ways of promoting participatory governance by representation that unite diverse groups in a free, fair, and credible election. Nigeria, since independence, has conducted several elections without youth participation, a situation that paved the way for the Not Too Young to Run Act, signed into law by President Muhammadu Buhari. In this report, Muhammad Rabiu Ali takes a look at the impact of the act in the just concluded general elections.
Available records from the National Bureau of Statistics indicate that Nigerian youth constitute about 53.38% population of over 200 million people who never had the opportunity to run for elective positions in the country. Analysts say money politics introduced and sustained by politicians remain a disincentive for youth participation in politics. However, in May 2018, President Muhammadu Buhari signed the bill Not Too Young to Run into an act which guaranteed Nigerian youth the right to participate in politics. This has significantly increased the number of youth vying for various elective positions in the electoral process.
2023 elections have given an opportunity for a number of young people to aspire. Some of them, a lot of them participated before the primary elections. Some of them won the primary elections, and quite a few of them actually won the general elections.
In the just concluded 2023 general elections, a number of youth participated both in the presidential, National Assembly, governorship, and state assemblies elections. This, experts say, is a welcome development.
We had cases of individuals
who were doing a tricycle or Okada who contested and won. And that should give hope to our young people that the politics have changed. People are now interested in ideas.
Coming to speak about youth, I think it is high time that the youth should take the governance system in the country. Not only that, it is a good thing that Mr. President has signed Not Too Young to Run into an act, build into an act that is become law now, that youth can actually take over the mantle of leadership.
Although the contest may not be without some challenges.
The inability of our political leaders to, mentor, and push forward, quality and qualified young people to manage.
Young people too have not been forthcoming, and part of their reservation, I think, has to do with the fact that our politics is highly monetized.
Stakeholders believe that with more participation of youth in the electoral process and the successes recorded through the Not Too Young to Run Act, this will translate into electoral value by ensuring that leadership in the country is participatory in the coming years. Muhammad Rabiu Ali, NTA News.
With me in the studio to throw more light on the Not Too Young to Run Act and its impact on the 2023 general elections is Mr. Ibrahim Farouk, a governance and development expert from Yaga, Africa. He is also an advocate for youth participation in politics. You're welcome to Parliamentary News.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's start with this question. Your assessment of the just concluded elections, looking at it from the perspective of the Not Too Young to Run Act.
Thank you very much. You would remember that the Not Too Young to Run bill, as it was at that time, was signed by President Muhammadu Buhari on the 31st of May 2018. So this is the second general election that we have since the act has come into force. One of the things that we have been doing, working around youth participation, is tracking what are some of the numbers, what are some of the indices around youth participation in politics. And there are so many different indices that we can look at. For instance, you can look at voter turnout, you can look at youth candidacy, you can also look at the level of youth representation. One of the things that we noticed, because as an organization at Yaga Africa, we've been tracking some of these indices, is that in 2015, youth candidacy, for instance, was 21%. So what that means is that the number of youth candidates that contested for the general elections in 2015 was only 21%. In the 2019 general elections, we saw a significant increase to about 34%. However, for the 2023 general elections, there was a decrease to about 28%. But for the 2023 general elections, we could have seen that many young people who are direct beneficiaries of the Not Too Young to Run Act, and just to refresh our memories, the act reduced the age for running for president from 40 to 35 years old. It also reduced the ages for running for House of Representatives from 30 to 25 years old. What this means is that before the bill was signed, a 25-year-old, for instance, would not be able to run for State House of Assembly or for House of Representatives, or a 35-year-old would not be able to aspire to the office of the president. But for the 2023 general elections, there were over 15,000 candidates for the various offices from president to the State House of Assemblies in 36 states. Out of these 15,000 candidates, about 4,000 of them were young people under the age of 35. But our data also shows us that about 1,800 of them were between 25 and 30 years old. So we can see that many young people who aspired were direct beneficiaries of this Not Too Young to Run legislation. And we can thank President Muhammadu Buhari and the organizations and everyone who was behind the Not Too Young to Run bill for having many more young people come out as candidates in the elections.
Going by the figures you have just shared with us, would you say you are satisfied with youth participation in these elections?
We are definitely not satisfied. I think that prior to the elections, especially many of the processes leading up to the elections, I'm talking about party primaries, for instance, we saw that there was a high cost of nomination forms, and this was one of the challenges that young people faced, and it reduced youth candidacy. You would remember that I said youth candidacy declined from 34% to about 28%. We also saw a commercialization of the process, and in many political parties, it was almost as if the highest bidder had access to the ticket. We also saw in some political parties where there was imposition of candidates, and many times young people, women, and persons living with disabilities, marginalized groups suffered from this imposition more than anyone else.
Kwara State did make history, having the youngest lawmaker and a female at that. So at Yaga Africa, how do you feel?
We're very proud. So at Yaga Africa, the Not Too Young to Run movement, everyone who is working on youth participation in this country is very proud.
All right, so we do know that that win for the youth during these elections did not come without challenges, which you listed earlier. So going forward, how can these challenges be tackled?
I think one of the ways that these challenges can be tackled is for political parties, first and foremost, to ensure that there are internal democracy mechanisms within the political parties, meaning that there should be a level playing field for each and every candidate.
So going by the remediation mechanisms you've put in place there, you've mentioned there, I'm sure Yaga Africa already has work on its hands that 2027 we will see more youth participation, people with disabilities and women being represented at the various levels. We congratulate you, and we congratulate Yaga Africa and Nigerians. It's a win for all of us. Thank you so much, Ibrahim Farouk, for coming on Parliamentary News. So moving on now to the West African sub-region. The elections in Nigeria and upcoming polls in Sierra Leone and Liberia are giving more impetus to the advocacy for women participation in politics in the West African sub-region. Members of the ECOWAS Parliament are engaging stakeholders in Freetown, Sierra Leone, on how to encourage women to active positions in leadership across the sub-region. Anangie Fineface reports.
Members of Parliament in West Africa consider the marginalization of women in political representation a major setback to the development of democracy in the region. This meeting of ECOWAS Parliament with stakeholders in Freetown, Sierra Leone, led by its Female Parliamentarians Association, hopes to reverse the trend, motivate women to take up the challenge of leadership and unleash their potentials for participation in politics.
A legal framework tying African leaders to the principle of gender equality is provided by the African Union Protocol, which also lays out important safeguards for African women.
It is a target supported by the United Nations stance on the full implementation of 35% representation for women in governance at state and national levels, an important element of the revitalized peace agreement.
For the representation of women and for advocating for women's empowerment and the continued participation in all walks of life, especially politics. It's not just the right thing to do, it is the smart thing to do.
Women constitute over half of the population, and they may not and must not be left behind. Their active contribution to the society as a whole in economy, in decision-making, and in all other fields needs to be promoted and must be valued, as it is truly precious and indispensable.
Speaker Sidi Mohamed Tunis says ECOWAS Parliament is committed to defending the cause of effective participation of women in political processes, with the aim of increasing their number in high-level positions.
The ECOWAS Parliament believes strongly that scaling up political partnership between men and women in politics is a step in the right direction. Partnerships between the duo is a matter of equity and human rights, which are cornerstones of a democratic society.
The event is a build-up to the ECOWAS Parliament delocalized Joint Committee meeting on energy sufficiency and just transition in Freetown, Sierra Leone. Onengiye Fineface, NT News.
And that concludes news on Parliamentary Channel this evening. Many thanks for your time. Remember to join the NTA in the fight against rape and rapists.